Good morning. Welcome to the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FF subreddit's dedicated podcast. I am your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine and on Twitter at Drew Dodson NFL. Dave is not with me today. He's off doing a charity run for something. Charity. With me today is Scott, another moderator on the subreddit. You can find him on Reddit at Stewie35, and you can't find him on Twitter because he's antisocial.
Something like that.
How you doing this morning, bud?
I'm doing good. Ready to do this podcast.
All right, I guess let's just jump right into it. We got a lot of stuff we wanted to cover today. We filled this docket up pretty good, and let's start it off with kind of one of the bigger news for the week was Adrian Peterson, made his plea deal, and he could potentially be back in the NFL this season. There's no official word from the NFL yet on whether he'll receive a secondary suspension, but they do consider his time on the exempt list not to count as time served, so he could still be looking at a suspension. Scott, how are you looking at the situation?
I'm not keeping him thinking he's going to help me out this year. If I have him, I'm holding on to him just because there's no point in getting rid of him right now. He has no value. But I don't think, even if he comes back and gets reinstated, I think they'll suspend him for 6 games. Maybe he gets the last week of the season if he's lucky to play. But I don't think that he's going to be worth anything this year. I'm holding him just in case he does come back, but I don't really like it anyways.
Right, and even if he comes back last week of the season, that's for most leagues. That's already the end of the season. Most teams don't. Most leagues don't have playoffs through week 17, and if your league does have playoffs through week 17, call up your commissioner and bring it up as a rule change this week because week 17 sucks. If you were in the playoffs in 2011 and you had Aaron Rodgers and he carried you all the way to the playoffs, then all of a sudden you don't get him in your championship matchup because they sat him because they had a great record. That's BS. Championship week 16. Put it on your calendar.
Definitely.
But granted, most of my take on Adrian Peterson right now has nothing to do with football and has everything to do with I don't want him on my team. I get it. These players, it's off the field. It has nothing to do with their play on the field. But when I own a player on my dynasty team or on any of my fantasy football teams, I root for that player. I root for that player to score. I root for him to get big runs. Whatever. And I can't see myself rooting for a guy every weekend who does what he did. It went way beyond, it doesn't matter right now because I'm gonna get on my soapbox and you'll never get me off. This is not the morality podcast, so
yeah. Point is, he's hard to root for, and even if he tries to come back this season, it probably won't do anything useful for your fantasy team this year.
Exactly. The bigger thing I thought about when this news started coming out was, what does this do for Jerick McKinnon?
Very true.
When you drafted him, you weren't expecting the kind of production you've gotten from him so far. You were thinking like 2 or 3 years down the road you might see something. But now, we have these higher expectations. We have, you want him to be out there producing. But if any news starts coming out about Adrian Peterson, his value is going to plummet again. So I hate to say this because I like Jerick McKinnon a lot, and he's a very explosive player, but his value is not going to be... If Adrian Peterson comes back, his value is not going to be this high again for another couple of years. So I would look at selling him. I would look at getting what you can, see if you can get that first-round pick like you could before. I've said it before. I got traded him straight up for Odell Beckham Jr. in a couple of leagues, and I don't think you're obviously not going to get that now because Beckham, blown up. This was before he was back, but I would look at seeing what you can get for McKinnon because his value is going to plummet if Adrian Peterson comes back.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked enough about Adrian Peterson. You get my blood pressure up if we keep talking about him. Another thing we wanted to bring up was Mike Evans finally had his breakout week, that makes it most of this dynasty wide receiver class has had big weeks, aside from Marquise Lee. But
yeah, especially those first rounders.
yep, everyone has started to blow up, and it's crazy. And if you spent the 102 on Mike Evans, this is what you were hoping for. You were hoping for just these dominant performances, because that's what he did in college. I was firmly of the opinion during the draft that Mike Evans was why Johnny Manziel looked so good, because he had that reliable downfield target. But yeah, Mike Evans is finally broken out. He's looking like the guy you wanted him to be at 102. Scott, what did you think about watching it?
Oh man, it was exactly what I've been waiting for. He's been having a couple decent games over and over again. I was waiting for that big breakout, and what was it, 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards catching, 8 receptions, something like that. It was exactly what we've been waiting for. Just letting me know that I made a good pick. I made a couple trades for him recently in a couple leagues where I'm out of the running this year. Traded players that are getting older for him and a couple picks or something like that, and just really feel a lot better about it now.
Yeah, I wish I had done that, because I was all over getting Odell Beckham and Dante Moncrief before they started producing, but somehow, it didn't occur to me that Mike Evans wasn't putting up big numbers, so people might sell him a little bit cheaper. So I didn't pick him up in any of the leagues I didn't have him in already, unfortunately. But yeah, huge week for him. I started him in some DFS lineups, and he made me some money last weekend.
There you go. Heck yeah.
I think it was like a 30-point performance on DraftKings scoring, and I mean this whole rookie wide receiver class has been just incredible. I mean, normally you might get one wide receiver that's put up numbers like that in a class, and we've had, let's see, Watkins, Benjamin, Evans, Cooks, Robinson, Moncrief. Did I say Beckham? I don't think I said Beckham. Devontae Adams. I mean, that's 8 wide receivers. It's insane, and it's going to shape the landscape of dynasty value for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was a deep class, but these receivers have really showed up early rather than taking time to develop into what we all thought they were going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Devontae Adams and Dante Moncrief, I invested in both of them heavily because I like, you could get them at a good price. I was predicting, even starting to see an increase in value for them at the start of next year when the situation's cleared up, but their talent has just shown through, and it's their coaches are recognizing it.
Definitely. It's been pretty awesome to watch.
It has, and I could sit here and gush about this rookie wide receiver class, but we have other things to talk about. The other big news, kind of big news, is the Carson Palmer extension. Scott, what were your thoughts when you saw this?
I think it's big for players like John Brown and Michael Floyd. Hopefully, finally comes back around like we're all hoping he's going to do. I think that just gives Arizona a little bit more solidity, or more solid. Wow, I cannot talk this morning. Just a more solid base to go for all their skill players. Knowing you're going to have that same quarterback underneath center and someone that's good and can get the ball to everybody. I think it's big for them and big for all those skill players, and I think it really helps out everybody's fantasy value there.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, John Brown was another of those rookie wide receivers that has been huge this year. But I agree. It gives that offense a little more stability going forward for the next couple of years. It lets you not worry about situations so much with John Brown and Michael Floyd. And it just overall it's good. The only thing it kind of made me pause and think about was for my my deep super flex leagues and 2 QB leagues. is what does this mean for Logan Thomas? Is this, I think it's showing that Bruce Arians isn't seeing the kind of development from him that we wanted. Granted, he's still a long-term project. Most of us knew that he was going to be a long-term project going in. He had a lot of issues coming out of Virginia Tech. But I'm not, even with this extension, I'm not ready to drop him in my Superflex and 2QB leagues. Just because he's got that upside if he actually develops.
Definitely. I wouldn't be getting rid of Thomas at this point. If anything, I'm thinking that he's got a couple more years to develop behind Palmer. Palmer can still go down as he's starting to get older, 38, 39, towards the end of that contract. He could go down or just not be looking as good, and they could start going to Thomas. And he's got such a gun. I wouldn't, if I'm in a 2QB league and I have him, I'm just going to hold on to him for now, stash him down in there.
Yep. Wow. How old is Carson Palmer? You brought up 38, 39. He is.
I think he's 36 right now, and he just extended to 2017.
He's 34, so through 2017. So he'll be 37 when that contract's up. Wow, he's Drew Brees' age.
Yeah, he's getting up there real quick.
Yeah, wow. It has been 11 years since Carson Palmer got drafted. Wow, it feels like it was, it might have been 6 or 7 years ago because I don't know. Maybe it's just early in the morning and I'm, didn't take all my crazy pills this morning.
It's not early in the morning there. It's early here, not there. Come on, give me a break now.
I know, but I don't want to be awake, so it's early.
Yeah.
If you were Dave, I could still be sleeping right now.
Yeah, I'm not really feeling bad about that.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you on. It's nice to get some dissenting opinions on here. But I think we're going to go ahead and move on to a couple of the player discussions we had for the week. I wanted to start off with one of my guys that, he's been pretty relevant in terms of fantasy. He's putting up some big numbers this year, and that's Randall Cobb. I'm kind of the opinion that, they, like most people after watching Devontae Adams develop, is Cobb's not going to be in Green Bay next year. I don't think that they're going to dish out the money to keep him, and I don't think he's going to go to a situation that's going to be nearly as lucrative for fantasy production. So if you're borderline contention, but even you look at your team and think, if I get into the playoffs, I'm probably not going to make it out of the first round, I'd look at selling Cobb because probably he helped get you there, but he's going to make your team a lot stronger in the long run if you trade him. Start looking for those weaker first-round picks. Look for, underperforming wide receivers, Michael Floyd, Keenan Allen. See if you can't, work out a package deal and move Randall Cobb, because I think during this season is the highest his value is ever going to be. I think he's gonna go somewhere else, and he's not going to have Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball.
Automatic drop-off at that point.
Yep. So what are your thoughts on Cobb? Are you selling him, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, I like him. I think he's doing good this year, but I would definitely mirror your sentiments there and say that if you have him and you're borderline, I'm getting rid of him, hoping that every time I see Devontae Adams on the field, it seems like Aaron Rodgers likes him more and more, and I'm like, I don't want to hold on to Cobb for too long at that point.
Yeah, he has such a rapport going with Adams already, and they're halfway through the season.
I mean, just that one play against Miami where they threw that fake spike to him. I mean, to trust a rookie with that versus anybody else. Jordy Nelson was out there on the field. I mean, there's so many other players you can give the ball to at that point, and it just shows that they definitely trust him, and Aaron Rodgers trusts him, so it's always good.
Yep, and I think that's going to be a fantasy relationship that's going to benefit your team for a good while, because Aaron Rodgers still has a lot left in the tank.
Which means buy Devontae Adams if you have the chance.
Absolutely, though his price now is probably reflective of what it really should be.
Definitely.
So who's your first guy you wanted to bring up this week?
All right. Well, I got a couple guys that are underperforming that I think that you should be keeping an eye on, though. First guy I'll talk about is Cam Newton. He was injured to start the season, been very babied into the offense, I'd say, at best. And it's been frustrating to watch as an owner. I own him in quite a few leagues, but I invested pretty heavily in him, and I'm not ready to sell. I think he had one game, like week 4, week 5, where he finally started to run the ball a bit and looked real good, had that rushing touchdown. He had one, I believe, last week as well, where he dove to the pylon. He's still that same guy, I think, and I think as they open up the offense more, as they feel more comfortable with him, with his ribs, and letting him take a couple more shots, and he's a big guy, so he can take those shots. I don't think you can get rid of him. I think that you should hold him. Maybe look for him if you don't have him already. I think some people might be low on him, and he might be a good guy to try and pick up, maybe in a 2 QB league, or if you have an aging quarterback like Peyton Manning or someone like that, and you're thinking about who you might want for the future. I think Cam Newton right now is at a good price with how his season's been so far, and might be a good time to try and look and get in him.
I completely agree. There's not going to be a whole lot of airtimes to get the kind of value on trade that you're going to get if you're trying to get Cam Newton. I think there's a lot of contributing factors to why he's not producing this year, and it's really just the perfect storm of having terrible production this year. He lost the majority of the O-line starters this year. They've got 2 undrafted rookies starting on their offensive line. He has no one to throw to besides Kelvin Benjamin and I guess Greg Olsen, but when your other options are Jericho Cotchery and Jason Avant, it's pretty easy to focus in and shut down those main options. It also doesn't help that what was that?
Definitely, I agree. I mean, he's just got no weapons to throw the ball to, nowhere to get the ball off. So, I mean, if that's all you got, if all you got is Cam Newton, it's pretty easy to key on one guy. And if you know he's going to rush the ball on the goal line because they don't have a running back to hand the ball to either, then you can just load up the box for that. I mean, it's rough for Cam Newton this year, definitely. I think that his situation can only get better.
Agreed. I think they need to make some moves this offseason to bring in some better wide receiver talent, some better offensive line talent, because it's not there. And the problem is they have no room for cap. They've got, I think, a third of their cap invested in their 3 running backs that are, they're just horrible.
Yeah.
D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, Mike Tolbert, has his purpose, and he's not taking up too much of the cap, but he's on IR. So this situation is not going to clear up quickly because you can't cut either of those running backs next year and save money on your cap. They will actually cost you more if you cut them next year than if you keep them.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be next year, but if you're, like I said, if you're looking for someone for the future, that's definitely a guy to target.
Agree. So I bring that up more just to kind of show that I doubt they're going to be out there making any big free agent signings. That they're going to look more to the draft to try and build up these positions.
Definitely, I agree.
Another guy I want to talk about was Michael Crabtree. This is another guy who's at the end of his contract. Unfortunately, he hasn't had that good of production this year. But, rumors are swirling around, especially during the offseason, that Crabtree wasn't going to be back in San Francisco next year. They weren't going to re-sign him. And I don't know how true that is, but I'm willing to bet on him leaving. Because if he leaves, chances are he's going to go somewhere and his value is going to plummet. If he goes somewhere like Oakland or New York, he's not going to see the type of target volume. If he goes to a good team, he won't see the target volume that he's getting now. And if he goes to a bad team, he's going to be playing on a bad offense. So there's really no good option compared to where he is now. So the way I'm sitting with Michael Crabtree, I got him in 1 league left. If he has a real good week, I'm selling him. I'm putting him out on the block, and I'm gonna get as much as I can for him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not seeing much of a chance to sell him, but if I do find that opportunity, I'm definitely getting rid of him if I can. I agree that he's probably not going to go to a better situation than what he's in now. If he has a bad team, he won't have a good quarterback. If he's on a good team, he won't see the same targets he sees. I just totally agree with what you said there.
Awesome. So who's another guy that's on your list for this week?
So my next guy I want to talk about was Eddie Lacy, another guy that's been struggling this season. Um, I'm on the fence about him, though. I really liked him coming into the year. I thought he looked pretty good last year, but I just haven't seen the same this season from him, and it's been really frustrating to watch. You see him do it every once in a while. He'll have some spurts where he looks like he did last year, but at this point, man, I'm holding on to him just because there's not much you can do. I mean, if I wouldn't want to sell him right now because chances are if you have him, you invested highly to get him, and it's selling him, you're not going to get what you put in to get him in the first place. So I'm holding him and just hoping this is a sophomore slump like a lot of running backs run into, and that he comes out looking better year 3 because he's got a great offense, but for some reason he's still not able to put it together.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that sentiment. I don't know what to do with Eddie Lacy. He's been so hot or cold this season, and his production has been fairly reliant on touchdowns, which scares me. Because he's not Alfred Morris, where Alfred Morris, you're either going to get 7 points or you're going to get 14, 15 from him, because he doesn't rely purely on rushing yards. Lacy can do a little bit of work in the passing game, but the bigger concern for me, besides his kind of hit or miss performances, because I know he's playing behind a sketch O line, and that it could just be a sophomore slump. That, and they played some very good run defenses to start the season. My bigger concern is the fact that James Starks is seeing as much work as he's seeing. Starks is replacement level talent, but he's going out there and putting up the same numbers per attempt that Lacy is, and that gives me a lot of reason to be concerned.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's part of the reason I'm just not sure what to do with him, because if Green Bay's not trusting him, putting in Starks as many carries as he's getting, and he's just not having a good year at all this year, what's going on? Is it an injury maybe that they're not telling us? Is he really not looking that good? Is he even regressing in the offense? But I mean, at this point I just feel like I have no choice but to hold on to him, because I'm not going to give him up for that much less than what I paid in the first place.
Agreed. And unfortunately, I'm starting to get a little scared, because you saw a lot of this with Trent Richardson too. You invested a first round pick in him after his rookie year, and you were able to overlook whatever deficiencies he had in his game because he was young and he ran well, and his second year not so much. So I mean, I don't want to put I don't know if I believe in that Alabama voodoo that their running backs are just terrible. Most of the voodoo comes from Louisiana anyways. I don't know how comfortable I am with seeing multiple Alabama running backs go and have the same issues in the league. And it makes me kind of apprehensive for TJ Yeldon coming out too, but I'll probably still draft him too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping not that you're not putting any curses on my guys right now, but it's been crazy to watch. I don't know what to even think of him right now. It's been frustrating to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think hopefully the situation clears up as the rest of the season goes on. Going into the off season, so we can make more informed decisions about what to do with our teams. I think with that we can move on to my last player for the week is Michael Floyd. I decided, I was going to be doom and gloom for my first 2 players. Hey, sell these guys, get them off your team, get what you can get for them. No, this next guy is a guy you need to go out and get on your team, because his numbers are not representative of his talent right now. And that's Michael Floyd. Michael Floyd has shown us that he, when he gets the ball, he can do some impressive things. And granted, he might not be getting that production this year, but Larry Fitzgerald's contract, his cap hit for next year is massive, and I don't think we're going to see him in Arizona next year. So that really opens it up for Floyd and Brown to get out there and really put up some big numbers, especially with Palmer extended. I would go out and try and pick up Floyd because, granted, some of your owners are going to be on the same mind track that we are. That hey, this is just par for the course. The situation will clear up and he'll get his production. But maybe you'll luck out and this owner has gotten wary of Michael Floyd and they'll try trading him away.
Yeah, no, I'd look for him on teams that are competing but aren't getting anything out of Floyd. If the team already thinks that they're going to make it this year to the playoffs, or they are already in the playoffs, I would definitely look to put out a feeler at the very least on that team, because he might be thinking, I need someone else that's going to produce, and I can't be waiting for Floyd anymore. My time's now, and not in 2 years or in a year when he might be clear in the situation. And just, you never know. Take that feeler out there and give him a shot.
Yeah, take your Randall Cobb shares. Offer him Randall Cobb straight up from Michael Floyd. I bet you they'd be stoked to get Randall Cobb's production going into the playoffs. And I would much rather have Michael Floyd over Randall Cobb.
Definitely.
I think you got one more guy that you want us to hit on before we move to our rookies.
Yeah, here's someone that I've seen a few people panic a little bit on him. He's doing decent. He's not having a bad season, but he's just not putting up the numbers everybody has been expecting from him, and that's LaShawn McCoy. Like I said, he's been doing good. He's put up, I think, 90% of his games, all but 1 or 2 maybe. He had 10, 15 points, but we're just so used to him going off for 22 points a game and averaging 18 all season long that some people are starting to panic a little bit, and I'm not sure if that's a great idea. And so, I put out a couple feelers for him. Everyone's still pretty high on him, so you're probably not going to be able to buy, but if you do own him, don't panic. Relax. He's still exactly who you think he is. He's just not having an explosive season like he's had in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah, he moved down to my number 2 running back this season, and that had absolutely nothing to do with what he's done. That's everything to do with how much I love Le'Veon Bell now. They have the same upside in terms of production, but I gave Le'Veon Bell the edge in terms of age. But LaShawn McCoy is still exactly who we thought he was. He's this explosive dynamite runner who most of his offensive line is injured right now, or has been injured. I think absolutely, if you can go out and buy him, go get him. I don't think you're going to get him cheap. Maybe you can get him maybe you can get him 90 cents on the dollar, and that's still a discount. But if you have him, don't sell him. Don't sell him unless you're getting a stud right back, and you're not getting borderline Dez, Julio, Demaryius Thomas level value back. Don't do it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that there's a couple people that are panicking a little bit with him, but if you own him, don't panic. Relax. Stay calm. He is exactly who you drafted. Just let the process work out, and I think if not before the end of this season, definitely next season, he's going to start exploding for those big games again that you've been waiting for.
Absolutely, and knowing your luck, you'll trade him away because you weren't so high on him, and then come fantasy playoff, fantasy championship time, that's when he's going to rock out the 25, 30-point games.
Yep.
Hold on to him, because that's his potential every single week.
Definitely. I think you just got to hold him. No doubt.
I think we're pretty hive-minded on that one. And I think that's all we really need to say about him, because he's shady. I remember I had him in 2011 when he had a touchdown every single game until week 17. I rocked that guy all the way to a championship. Him and Drew Brees. That was a good year for me. But I think we can go ahead and move on to our rookie spotlight. And now that Dave's gone, we can do some fun stuff. With Scott here, we're going to do our first IDP coverage of the show, and we're going to talk about Anthony Barr. Scott, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Oh my God, I love this kid. He is, I believe, the fifth linebacker in one of my IDP leagues. He has been amazing for Minnesota. It's been ridiculous. He's got a lot of tackles. He's been getting a couple sacks lately in these last couple games. He's got 4 sacks in the season. I think that this is a guy that if you don't own him already, you should probably go try and get him. If you don't have him though, it's going to be hard. He's looked amazing, and I didn't even see it coming like that. I mean, I thought he'd play well coming out of UCLA, but as well as he did, it was pretty amazing to watch him come out and just absolutely dominate out there in Minnesota.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Anthony Barr was that guy you took because he got drafted highly, which is a nice bump, but he was a very athletic talent that his game still came off as kind of raw. He has wasted no time jumping to the NFL level and putting up consistent production. That's the best part. It's not just he had one big week where he got 3 sacks and 8 solo tackles. No, he's putting up these solid numbers every week, and you can't ask for much more from a rookie linebacker. He's putting up numbers that you want to see from Ryan Shazier and C.J. Mosley, who I guarantee you took probably 2 rounds earlier than you would have taken Barr.
Definitely. I mean, he's been everything those guys were supposed to be, everything everyone talked them up to be. And don't get me wrong, C.J. Mosley's had a pretty good year as well. I believe he is actually just right above Anthony Barr, but that's what you expected to pay for Mosley, and that's what you did pay to get Mosley. Barr's been that round back that you still got that same production as Mosley's been getting, and it's just been phenomenal.
Absolutely. The numbers he's putting up is what we were hoping we'd see out of Khalil Mack, who I've got nothing bad to say about him. He's been a monster too, but I think it really shows that Minnesota knew what they were doing when they took him. It's looking like a really smart pick because that guy is going to anchor that defense for quite some time.
Definitely. I love it. If you have someone sitting him on their bench or sitting on their taxi squad, go try and get them. But I would not be expecting to get anything cheap to get him out there.
Absolutely. And I would try and shoot out an offer just because the hype around Barr right now is not as high as it is around Mosley and Mack. And there might be some owners that don't realize that he's doing as well as he is. So maybe you can take advantage of that, but chances are probably not. Another rookie we wanted to go on is Andre Williams. This guy for me was he fit it right in there with Devonta Freeman under the category of players I don't want on my team. And I think he's shown us exactly why. You look at the difference in the Giants offense from when Rashad Jennings was playing and when Andre Williams is playing, and the difference is night and day. That offense has stalled out hard since Andre Williams has been getting the start, and I think it's clear that he's not the answer there, based on how much they're using Peyton Hillis. Remember Peyton Hillis, with the Browns? He's not the answer either. I think if you own Andre Williams, you need to get out. As soon as he gets a goal line touchdown and puts up a decent fantasy game, get rid of him because he's not the answer in New York. And I think obviously when Rashad Jennings is healthy, he's going to be back on the field. But I think they look to replace him this year in the draft, or maybe they. How long is Jennings' contract? I think it's a 3-year contract.
I am not sure about that one actually.
But yeah, I mean, with as well as Jennings has been playing, he hasn't had that many carries on his body. He could potentially be the running back there for a couple more years. Let me look up his contract real quick. It's a 4-year deal, so we could be watching the Rashad Jennings show in New York for quite some time. And Andre Williams is not, he's a terrible co-host.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's an echo in this room because I agree. It's exactly the same thing I'm thinking. I wasn't really high on him coming out. If I own him now, I'm looking to get rid of him for somebody that other people are low on. I know no names come to mind right off the top of my head, but this is the guy that he wasn't in a great situation to start out with. I didn't really like his talent, and he's just come to prove that he's not really what some people thought he was going to be. And I don't think that he's going to turn the corner anytime soon. I think that they're definitely going to go with Jennings. The fact that they're playing Peyton Hillis as much as they are is not good news for any Williams owners. And yeah, get out as soon as you can.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest issue with him, the pre-draft process, was he made Alfred Morris look like a pass-catching savant. Um, I when you can only be used as a two-down back, and that's, you know, the defense already knows that, it kind of limits your potential use. And I think the hate fest for Andre Williams can end now, and we can move on to one of your guys, and that's Jarvis Landry. Tell me what you're thinking.
I really like Jarvis Landry. I think that he was underrated coming in because of OBJ, and I think he's still kind of flying underneath the radar there. All of Miami is flying underneath the radar, though, and I think that he is going to be a really big player for Miami out there. They got Brian Hartline on contract for quite a while. I believe he's on contract till like 2017, and they're paying him like $5 million or $6 million a year, something like that. It's ridiculous, but I think they're slowly going to be phasing him out and working closer and closer to just using Jarvis Landry versus trying to use Brian Hartline as much. I don't think his production has been the same this year as it's been in the past years, and I think that you should probably send out some feelers for Jarvis Landry because I think there's lots of guys that don't see his production. Miami's been using him more and more throughout the season. I think this is the time to get him because if you don't grab him now, his value is going to continue to go up. And if you didn't already grab him, his value is up from where it was at the beginning of the season. So buy now if you can. I think he's going to be a big part of that offense. Mike Wallace will be the one. You could probably have Hartline at the 2, if not slot, and Jarvis Landry will be the third wide receiver.
Yeah, if you could tell by the tiger on my hat, I like Jarvis Landry too. And I think, honestly, I think his fall in the draft had a lot less to do with Odell Beckham and a lot more to do with putting up poor combine numbers. He was a projected borderline first-round wide receiver before the combine, and then he puts up, I think it was a 4.6 40, and that dropped him down a lot of people's boards. That's why you don't put as much stock in the combine, because he's looked as good as he did at LSU in Miami. His game is translated, seamlessly into the NFL. And I agree. If you send out some feelers, try and get him, because I think he's gonna be locking down that slot position, replacing Brandon Gibson here for a good bit. He's looking every bit the part of a potential first round wide receiver.
Yeah, that just speaks to watching the tape versus just looking at the numbers from the combine. A lot of people put a lot of weight into what they do at the combine, and that's really not the end-all be-all. Players get hurt. Players are just not at their top physical shape at that time. Sometimes, all kinds of things can happen at the combine. Look at the tape. Look at what they do on the field. Often, not always, that'll translate pretty well. And I think he's a perfect example of that, just playing real well, even though those numbers were not pretty at the combine at all.
Agree, and I think it's Adam Harstead that says this. It's the combine for me is just checking a box. If their numbers look like what we saw on the field, good. That solidifies what I saw on the field. If they're better, hell yeah. But if they're worse, I'm willing to go back and take a second look at tape and see if I was maybe overrating this guy. But chances are he didn't have a good combine. And that's fine. And the worst part about it was he injured himself at the combine, so he couldn't, try again at the pro day.
And yeah, that's exactly why you gotta take those numbers with a grain of salt. I agree. You gotta re-look at your guy. If he gets bad numbers, go back and look at the tape again and double check that you weren't, getting a little bit too excited. Maybe he's on your favorite team, Tigers, or something like that. And you just gotta relax though and look at him, reevaluate the tape. If the tape still shows it's good, then trust your evaluations. You gotta believe what you see on tape, because sometimes some players are just better on the field than they are off the field. So can't always take those numbers as the end all be all.
Yeah, and this isn't a hit on metrics. Metrics absolutely have their place, but you need to give them some context. You can't just blindly look at numbers and expect to be able to evaluate this talent properly. And I think this will end up going into a way deeper conversation if we don't move on. So I think we can go ahead and move on to our college player discussion of the week. And this week we are not discussing a single college prospect. We are actually discussing something that Dave wanted me to bring up, or not Dave, what Scott wanted me to bring up, and that was how do I rank Gurley versus Gordon? And for me, Gurley is far and away the number one, and that is nothing against Gordon, and that's everything about how much I'm ready to propose to Todd Gurley. This guy is just a stud, and I think that he's without a doubt the consensus number one pick in this draft. So we're gonna go ahead and break down and compare the two players, and I know you spent a good bit of time on Gordon, and let me know what you saw.
So I mean, Gordon, he's very patient behind the hole, and he finds the hole very well as well. He's got good vision, and when he does get to the hole, he's pretty quick. He makes good cuts. He's not great in the open field, and sometimes I get a little bit bothered by him dancing in the hole, it seems like, or dancing before the hole. I saw a couple plays against LSU where he reversed field on a run to the right and went behind his quarterback and back to the left, and oh my God, I hate seeing. I'd rather him dive forward, get 1 yard, 2 yards, than seeing him go backwards and luckily get 3 or 4. It's something I would not like to see in a running back on my team if I was rooting for him.
Yeah, I remember that run you're talking about, and I mean sometimes you just gotta take it, because I remember I was watching Gurley. He did the same thing. I think it was against might have been against Clemson this year, and they ran that defense just closed down on him, ran him all the way to the left sideline, and he turned around, reversed field, and blew past three defenders and picked up a first down and then some. So I mean, I'm willing to take that once in a while. If they look at the situation and see, hey, I'm not going to get anything going this way, give it a shot. Why not? If you believe in your speed enough to go for it, go for it. But going through with Gordon, I like Gordon a lot. He's he's got a very good. He's very. My words are not with me this morning. He's deceptively fast. He's got that quickness to him, kind of like a Jamal Charles. He's not overly strong, but he's very elusive. Like he's not breaking these tackles off of power. He's breaking these tackles off of his movements. And I think that adds a lot to Gordon's game. My biggest issue, not really an issue, but why I'm not ranking him higher is because he doesn't have the prowess in the passing game that I like to see from my top running back prospects. He can catch the ball, he can run with it, but he doesn't look like he's comfortable catching the ball. I don't know, what did you see on his pass catching ability?
On Gurley's or Gordon's?
Gordon's.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see too many. They didn't even seem to target him very often in the passing game out there. I saw a couple plays where it seemed like he might have just dropped 1 or 2 passes. He did pull in 1 or 2 tough ones, but they don't even seem to like to use him a lot, which kind of worries me. Like we were talking about Andre Williams. If you just have a 2-down back, how much good can he really do for your team, and how useful is he on the field? And, I mean, I didn't see a lot in pass protection either when they did the play fakes. I mean, he did a couple chips, but that's something that definitely worries me about his game, but maybe it's just them not using him for that situation out there in Georgia. And, and I mean, he might be all right still, but I didn't see anything that made me think that he could be a Matt Forte type coming out of the backfield and catching a lot of passes and doing stuff like that with it. But I mean, I know if he gets behind some blockers, he's really good at reading his blocks and knowing where to go. I saw him squeezing some really small holes a couple times. So after the catch, he could do it. But getting him that ball, I wouldn't trust him on a deep route at all. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and it kind of concerned me that they don't use him in the passing game, because Wisconsin has is very in tune with their running backs. They've put out some excellent running back prospects, and they've shown that they know how to use them. And the fact that he's not being involved in the passing game more does concern me some. Um, he is, he is better than that Andre Williams or Alfred Morris, but I agree. I'm not sending him on an out route. He's taking those short routes, and he's the emergency dump off. But past that, his role is limited.
Definitely.
And I think now it's time to begin the Gurley love fest. Um, I went through and watched. I watched 4 games of his. I watched Clemson from 2013 and 2014. I watched South Carolina from this year, and I watched somebody else from last year. And now I can't remember it, and I'm feeling kind of dumb. But that's all. Oh, Auburn. That's right. And I'm in love with this guy. He's got everything you want in a running back. He's got agility. His acceleration is ridiculous. You see these defenders, they're almost on him and then gone. He's picked up 5 yards on him, and his top speed, his top gear is it's something to be excited about. This guy, he's strong. I was watching the South Carolina game. He's dragging linebackers for 6, 7, 8 yards after contact. That's not something you regularly see. And these are SEC linebackers. These aren't Conference USA linebackers. These guys are biggins, and he's just dragging them like he's cool. His game has everything you want. He's got the speed. He's got the power. He's excellent field vision. You watch one of the games from I want to say of South Carolina, and if he follows the fullback, he's got a decent little lane, but he's got awareness of the field and sees a giant lane opening up on his left because they were crashing in on his other running lane, and he cuts over, makes one cut, takes that second lane, brings it in for a touchdown. Nice little 20-yard run.
Yeah, nobody in college is catching him from behind. That is for sure. I mean, he's got amazing speed. I watched only like one game of him, and that popped right off the page right away. I mean, he absolutely blows by players, and he's got good moves in the open field. He can shake you, he can stiff arm you really well. I think that he definitely looked really, really good out there.
Yeah, and every issue I have with Gordon about pass catching, not even close with Gurley. Gurley is a natural pass catcher out of the backfield. This guy, he naturally catches with his hands, which is it's not something you see as common with running backs, and it's got me really excited. He's gonna see he can be used in every facet of the game. They split him out wide in a couple of packages. His pass blocking is, I mean, it's not out of this world. It's not no Sean Moreno level, but it's going to be more than adequate. It's not something that's going to cause him to stay off the field early in his NFL career. It's something he's going to have to work on and get better at, as he faces higher levels of competition. But he has no problem, throwing out that chip block and throwing his body at the defender.
So my question to you is, if you were paying for Todd Gurley right now, or for the 1.01, what would you pay for him?
Ooh. Guaranteed 101. I think I'd give up any running back other than Le'Veon Bell, Shady, maybe Jamal Charles, maybe Gio. Any other running back I'd give up for the 101. Gurley is going to come out of this draft and already be in my top 5 dynasty running backs, especially if he goes somewhere that's going to be conducive to his fantasy production, like somewhere like Jacksonville, which is somewhere I'd love to see him. I would give up just about any of those running backs. Wide receiver's a little tougher because I do value position quite highly, but I think I'd give up any wide receiver probably outside of my top 12. Give up any tight end besides Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski.
Would you give up Julius Thomas for him?
In a heartbeat. I'm not concerned. I'm not convinced that Julius Thomas is worth what his value is right now. He's, as long as he's with Peyton Manning, he's going to put up numbers. But he's been very touchdown dependent to get into the tier that he is.
Yeah, I mean, in the last couple games, he's had, I believe, 3 catches total, no touchdowns. So, I mean, I can see your reasoning for that. And just being a homer, I'm all about Julius Thomas. I mean, I'm a big Denver fan, so.
Oh, I imagine that. And this is I like Julius Thomas. I think he absolutely deserves to be the number 3 dynasty tight end. But I think his value is capped. If he doesn't get re-signed with Denver, that's a big hit to his value. That concerns me somewhat.
Definitely.
And if Peyton Manning retires, that's going to take a big hit to his value unless, Brock Lobster comes in and decides that tight end is going to be a safety valve.
Only hope.
But more than a knock against Julius Thomas, this is all about how high I think Todd Gurley's potential is. This is one of those guys. This is a set it and forget it pick for the next 5-6 years. This is a guy you're going to be able to stick in as your RB1 every week and not worry about the production.
I mean, I think it's worth it then. I mean, if you feel that strongly about him, if you're out there and you know somebody, definitely, if there's a guy that's 4 games back from everybody else and he's definitely going to have the 1.01 and you can find a way to get that away from him, I think that it's something you should probably be doing. I don't think that you would even have to give up anyone close to LaShawn McCoy's level or Eddie Lacy even. I don't think that they're going to be asking for someone like that. I think that you find someone, maybe even Randall Cobb, that's really high this year, that you might be able to get the 1.01 from him. Some people really aren't paying attention to the futures of players, and they might think that Cobb is either going to return to Green Bay, which he could, or that he's going to do great where he goes. And I think now might be a good time to try and see if you can get that 1.01 before draft season comes around and it becomes much more expensive.
Completely agree. And this is why I'm not even necessarily saying go after these teams that are 2 or 3 wins behind. Go after these teams that aren't making the playoffs. Take that lottery ticket. This is why I've been preaching going after these draft picks. Because if you hit on the Gurley lottery, you just won yourself a stud. You just won a guy he's going to give you he's going to be an RB1 for 6, 7, 8 years. And I mean, how young is he? I think he's going to be 21 the start of his rookie season, and that's you don't see that level of talent and youth coming into the NFL, and especially with as many old players as we have in the NFL at the running back position, this is going to be a beautiful infusion of youth. This guy, it's exactly why Le'Veon Bell is worth as much as he is right now, because he's putting up killer numbers and he's young. And Todd Gurley is going to do the same thing, except he's going to do it on a higher scale. I could see Todd Gurley being the consensus number 1 running back after his rookie year. And I just checked numbers. He's going to be 21 at the start of his rookie season.
I took a look at that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna obviously talk about this more as the draft draws closer, but I mean, there's no reason Gurley shouldn't be going 101. I don't care if you're needy at wide receiver and you like Amari Cooper. Todd Gurley needs to be the 101. Plain and simple. And speaking of young players, I wanted to move on to one of our subreddit post discussions that actually you brought up, and it's what's the future of these of Ryan Tannehill and these other young quarterbacks. And so how do you want to do this? You want to just go quarterback by quarterback, or do you want to just randomly just start spitting names?
I mean, I just listed a few, but we can just go off any names that you think are going to be good young QBs for the future. I'll go ahead and start with Tannehill, though, and I mean, he was up and down at the beginning of the season. I hang out with a Dolphins fan a lot, and he was absolutely hating Tannehill. He was saying he's not going to be the QB of the future, that Miami needs to still find their QB, but I think Tannehill is the real deal. I think that he's still young, and he's not going to be, putting up Tom Brady numbers anytime this year, or probably not next year either. But I'm sitting on him. I'm definitely waiting for him. If I have old guys like Peyton Manning, I'm going after Tannehill. I like him a lot. I think that he makes smart decisions. I think that he's normally safe with the ball. He's not just a game manager as well. He can get the ball out there. He's been working with Mike Wallace out there and trying to get better rapport with him. Last year he just overthrew him or underthrew him and then overthrew him and then underthrew him, and that was frustrating to watch. But he's been much better this year, and I think that he's someone you definitely need to be trying to get if you have an old aging quarterback. You do have Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, someone else that's getting older, or someone that's just constantly hurt, and you feel like you need a better backup. I would definitely look at Tannehill, who I don't think is being valued where he should be valued right now. You might want to wait a couple weeks now after that week against San Diego. He's probably got a little bit more hype than he's actually worth at the very moment, but I would still, even at the value he's at now, I would probably still want him.
Completely with you on that one. I was on the Tannehill train going into the season. He was my target in a number of my startup drafts. He was my, I think he was my QB 10 dynasty rankings, and he was going about QB 13, QB 14, and I think he had a really good chance to outperform both of those rankings. And completely agree. He's getting a better rapport with his offense. And the thing that excites me the most is he's getting some designed runs for him, where it's not like RG3 where he's just going off into the defense and getting run over. No, I mean Tannehill's a smart runner. This guy played wide receiver at Texas A&M for 2 years. He knows how to take some hits. He knows how to get outside. He knows how to get to the sideline when he needs to. And that rushing production, 40, 50 yards a week, that's 4 or 5 points. That's almost a touchdown worth of production. It's more than a touchdown production if you're in a 4-point touchdown league. And
I mean, that's just another reason why I like him so much. He's got those legs, and they don't even use them that much. I mean, they're starting to do it now. They've been having those couple designed runs. They're doing the read option for him, and he's pulling it when he should be pulling it, and catching defenders jumping inside trying to get Lamar Miller. And I just think, I mean, when they roll him out, he's good at looking up the field while rolling out and trying to just find a receiver still. He's not looking to run the ball, but he can run it, and he runs it in the right situations. I think he really is a very smart quarterback and someone you should be definitely paying attention to.
Completely agree. Like you said, I mean, yeah, this week might not be the best week to buy him considering how nice of a performance he had, but I disagree with how you worded your question that you don't think his value's not going to be where as high as it is right now. I think you're going to be able to get him cheaper in a couple of weeks, with an off game or what have you. But I think he's absolutely, if you decide to go get him today, if you decide to go get him this week, whatever you pay is going to be worth it in the long run, because he's a young quarterback. They're slowly building an offense around him, and I think he's probably the best quarterback the Dolphins have had since Dan Marino.
And they're still putting together that offensive line in front of him. It's a patchwork offensive line right now, a bunch of young guys out there, and I mean he's still putting it together pretty well.
Yep, completely. And I think we can go ahead and move on to another guy who Dave and I touched on a little bit last week with one of the Reddit comments, and that's RG3. How are you feeling about RG3 after seeing him get back on the field this week?
I don't know. It's hard to watch RG3. He still just looks so awkward when he's trying to not get hit as he's running that football, and he worries me. He's injured a lot. He doesn't have that big frame that you'd like from a guy that's going to be running as much as he is. Like Cam Newton has a bigger frame, that I think Cam Newton can take a hit or two, but RG3, he just looks so frail, all those braces all over his knee and everything. Oh, man, I'm not high on RG3 at this point. I think that if you do like him, if you think he's got potential still, go get him. He's probably not that high of value right now, but if you have him, I doubt that you're going to get what you invested for him. And at that point, I mean, you might want to just sit on him, but I think he's a good quarterback. He's smart most of the time, but he's taken too many hits, and I don't see that changing anytime soon either.
Yeah, when you say he's a smart quarterback, he makes he makes a good reads when he's passing. He makes smart decisions, but as soon as he decides to start running, he gets all Rain Man on us and goes back to breathing out of his mouth, and he doesn't know how, he knows how to run, but he doesn't know how to stop running. You watch him during the preseason game against the Browns, and he just crumbled under himself. He's gonna tear his ACL again by himself. He's not even gonna have to get hit because he doesn't know how to slide. He never takes the run outside to the sideline. He's not smart about any of his decisions he makes while he's running, and I think that it's going to cost him his career. Um, I agree. You're not going to get anything for him close to what you invested in him if you're trading him. So you might as well hold on and hope that he gets a little bit of the hype back. But I could just as quickly see him get re-injured this season, and that being kind of the end of his value.
All right, well, I'll go to another guy that I really liked and I want to talk about, and that would be Brian Hoyer for the Browns out there, who looked like the real deal this weekend. Too bad Dave's not here to brag about that a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I think that, oh, man, Hoyer, I was high on him last year when he first came in, and then he injured his knee trying to do a little bit too much running, RG3-esque. But I think he's someone that you should be going after. I think he's similar to Ryan Tannehill, where he makes smart decisions. He does have the legs. He does not use them as much as Tannehill's been using them. But I think that Hoyer's got that savvy. He sat behind Brady for a while, and I think that he might have learned a couple things back there because he's definitely showing to be a pretty good quarterback and a pretty smart kid.
Yeah, I kind of feel about Hoyer. Well, that's a poor way to word it, but Hoyer and RG3 are both two players that if I have a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady and I need a younger quarterback, those are not the guys I'm going to. I like Hoyer. I like what he's done this season, but I think they're still going to end up going with Manziel at some point, and we're going to have to hope that Hoyer lands somewhere else where he can start. I think Hoyer has shown everything he needs to show to be at least an average starting level quarterback with relatively no weapons to play with. I mean, when Andrew Hawkins is, your most dynamic athletic receiver, that's not really a whole lot to work with. So I think Hoyer will get a chance somewhere else. I don't know if he'll get the job outright or if he'll have to compete for it. But I think if you've got a spot on your roster, say you've got an Andrew Luck, somebody that, he's going to lock down that QB position for you for a while, you can go ahead and pick up Hoyer and take a shot on that upside that he lands somewhere and he gets to keep the job long term. I'm not going out and paying anything significant for him. If you can get him on the cheap, do it. But I'm personally not as high.
And that's definitely understandable. I think that he might be the last year of his contract, maybe second to last year of his contract there in Cleveland.
I think it's last year.
Which is worrisome. I agree they drafted Manziel really high, but I have a hard time denying what I'm seeing on the field this year. And like you said, he's got very, very little places or people to work with out there, and he still seems to somehow have the Browns at a 6-3 record, which is still weird for me to say out loud. I just don't know. I can't find a good knock for him besides the fact that Manziel's there, and I like him. I think he's definitely a young athletic quarterback and someone that is better at sliding than RG3. That's for sure, which isn't going to say much, but I think that he'll stay healthy for the most part, and if he can keep staying healthy, I don't see him losing a job to anybody else that's around that same age, same level of skill.
Well, in all fairness, most paraplegics are better at sliding than RG3 is. But I agree. My big issues with Hoyer have nothing to do with his ability and everything to do with waiting for Manziel fever to take over. Hoyer's done nothing to lose the job so far, and I think that's why we haven't been here and calls for his head and calls for Manziel to start. But I think in the long run, people are going to want to take a shot on that upside. And I don't think Hoyer's going to get re-signed in Cleveland.
I agree.
And I think we can go ahead and move on to another young quarterback who, as good as Hoyer looked on Thursday, this guy looked even worse in comparison, and that's Andy Dalton. I don't know what Andy Dalton. I don't know what he is. Besides a ginger. I don't know what to do with him because some weeks he'll give you 350 yards and 3 touchdowns, and some weeks he'll give you a 33% completion rating and a handful of interceptions.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know what to do with him at this point either. Personally, I'm waiting for him to have another big game, and I'm trying to sell him as soon as his value goes up a little bit. I think that he's very inconsistent. They just signed him to a big contract worth way too much money, Joe Flacco style. I don't agree with it at all. I think that Dalton is an average talent who seems to just not quite grasp it. He's had this is his 4th year, 5th year in the league, and he's still just not. He's not doing that consistency you'd like to see out of a guy that's been starting since he showed up, or pretty much since he showed up, and it's just been getting more and more frustrating. He hasn't had AJ Green a lot this year, which is something that you don't normally see, but I don't think that that's going to change his consistency that much. I mean, I think he'll have a little bit better play, but I don't think this is all because AJ Green's sitting on the bench. I think Dalton isn't the talent that Cincinnati wishes he was, and I don't think he's going to send them to a Super Bowl anytime soon. I think that if you own Dalton, as soon as he has a big game, you should sell and hope you can get somebody else, anything else really. I don't think that he's going to be your quarterback of the future.
Yeah. And the excuse that he doesn't have AJ Green this year, that's not why he's not being consistent. I would kind of have cause to believe that if he didn't do the exact same thing last year when he had AJ Green. He's been consistently inconsistent, and it drives me crazy. I think another guy we can kind of touch on, just because his abilities have come into question. Not really his abilities, but his values come into question lately, and that's Russell Wilson. I mean, this is a guy who, at some point during the season, was looking like a borderline top 5 dynasty quarterback, and now he's giving you games that are going to lose you your week.
This is another guy I personally have no idea what to do with. I think that he had a great year last year. I think that he's better than he's playing currently, so I wouldn't sell him if I'm owning him. But I don't know if last year wasn't the best that we're going to see from him. I don't know if he can get even better than what we had last year. I mean, he's smart, real smart guy, just like Tannehill is. He knows when to run. He knows how to run well without taking a bunch of hits. He knows how to get out of bounds. He knows how to slide. But I don't know what to do right now with him. I don't own a lot of shares. I think I own him 1, maybe 2 leagues, but I have no idea. He's a complete question mark for me personally at quarterback.
I mean, he's not as big a question mark for me. I'm pretty the places I own Wilson, I'm not happy by his production lately, but I think this is a short time thing. I think once they've adjusted their offense to account for the fact that they don't have Percy Harvin there anymore, who he wasn't a large part of the offense when he was there, but he was still part of their game plan, so they have to adjust roles. They have to, bring in Ricardo Lockett. They need to bring in Jermaine Curson. They need to adjust to playing as a starting wide receiver. I'm not worried about Wilson. He's a smart enough player to where he's gonna be worth something wherever he goes. This guy, everything that RG3 does wrong as a runner, Wilson has that many positive marks as a runner. You watch him. When he has to dump out of the pocket and he runs around behind the line of scrimmage, every time he's looking downfield, he's looking for somewhere to hit until that last minute when he knows there's no openings, and that's when he takes off. He's always looking to pass first, and that running is always secondary, though it is a threat if he's out there.
I agree. I think he's one of the smartest quarterbacks out there. You can't really deny that. You can't say anything bad about his decision making. He constantly throws the ball away when he has to. He runs when he should. He gets out of bounds. He's not taking crazy hits. The production just hasn't been there, and I'm just not a huge fan. So I don't know what to do with him personally.
Hey, I get it, but I think at this point, if you own him, you can't sell him anyways. This is not the point to be selling him.
Definitely not.
Now here's a young quarterback we didn't have on the list that I'm interested to see where you stand on him, and that's Colin Kaepernick.
Oh man, Colin Kaepernick. You know, I want to believe that he is better than what we've seen this season, and I think he is, but I'm not rating him that high. He's definitely underneath Wilson. I might even have him just a little bit less than Tannehill for me. I think Tannehill.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Tannehill's definitely been playing well this season, and that's helped his value a bit. But I just haven't seen that development. What's this, third year for Kaepernick?
This is his fourth
I haven't
year.
seen that progression that you want to see out of a young QB. I think that I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's the offensive line. Maybe it's the lack of a running game compared to what they normally have. But it's just hasn't been the same. That's for sure.
I agree, and I think if Kaepernick gets on a hot streak this year, that's definitely a guy I'm looking to sell. I don't own him in a lot of places. I have him in a couple places. But I think his production is going to change next year because Frank Gore is going to retire, and he could be looking at having a wide receiver core with his number one wide receiver being Stevie Johnson. If Crabtree leaves and Bolden retires, then that wide receiver core definitely just got depleted quickly. And I don't know that he's going to be producing when his only real target is Stevie Johnson, who's crazy. He just I don't know if you've heard this, but he just runs whatever route he wants when he gets out there, and that just blows my mind that somebody can do that.
I don't know how he's still on the field if that's what's going on out there. I haven't heard anything about that, but
He's done it since he was with the Bills, and he's been putting up 1,000-yard seasons since it was cool. I think he's had one season out of his career where he hasn't had 1,000 yards.
that is insane. I do not understand that at all.
You got me. So are there any other young QBs you could think of that we haven't sat here and talked about? I mean, besides Colt McCoy, because he's a key dynasty asset. Oh, I actually forgot there is one I wanted to talk about, and it's kind of a twofer. Nick Foles and Mark Sanchez.
Okay.
I don't know what to do. I was heavily invested in Foles this year because there were people that were skittish on taking him, so I got to pick him up in my I did a couple of Superflex startups, and he was going a lot later than most of the other quarterbacks that were in his that ranking tier for me. And now there's reports coming out that the Eagles front office was souring on Foles, and I don't know how much I want to believe that. I think he hasn't done a whole lot to lose them games, but normally most of these reports come from some sort of place of truth.
Definitely. I like Nick Foles. I think that he is a good quarterback. Those reports recently do scare me as well, and I think that it's a bit worrisome, mostly because Nick Foles was there before Chip Kelly was, and they brought in Sanchez later. So I think that Sanchez might fit more of what Chip Kelly was looking for, and that's where most of my apprehension comes right now. I own him in one league. He was my QB of the future. I just traded away Peyton Manning at the beginning of the season. It was all Foles, and now with him being injured, I'm sitting with Hoyer as my starter, and I'm not feeling terrible about that, but I'm also not very confident with it either. I do not want that to be my future at quarterback from Hoyer, but he's a good backup plan for Foles and a good bye-week fill-in as of right now. But Foles' value, I think that it's at an all-time low right now. If you think that he's going to get back on the field and get some playing time, I maybe wait for this weekend, see what Sanchez does. If Sanchez does great, I think Foles' value will plummet. I think that there wouldn't be a better time to get Foles. I think if he doesn't play in Philadelphia, I think he can still be a good quarterback somewhere else. But that's just my personal feelings on Foles.
Completely agree. I don't really think there's much else I need to say about Foles, but I do want to touch on Sanchez a little bit more. If you're in a 25, 26-man league and you've got, an extra roster spot, you've got, you're holding Ricardo, Lockett, something like that, pick up Sanchez, because if he does end up getting, really earning this starting job, Chip Kelly's offense has proven to be just a wealth of fantasy production. So even if when you think of Sanchez, all you think about the butt fumble, I think he could very well erase that from your mind, throwing it to Jordan Matthews and dumping off screen passes to Darren Sproles and Shady. So if even in your 1 QB leagues, go pick him up. Go pick him up if you've got any sort of roster space. And I think, I can't think of any of the other young QBs to really talk about. The rookies, we're still waiting to see what plays out with them. I'm not ready to make a decision on any of them yet. Because if you look at Blake Bortles' production, he's been throwing interceptions like it's cool, but that doesn't turn me off of him just yet. I think he's still got a lot of time to develop. So, I think it's these second and third year quarterbacks that we're starting to see what they can really do, but we're also starting to see the holes in their game.
Yeah, and for me, it's progression. I need to see them moving forward in their game. I need to see better decisions. I need to see more plays being made. They need to be able to make some plays, make something out of nothing every once in a while, and that's something that I'm looking for in that quarterback that I want to replace my aging QB.
That's the perfect way to put it, and I didn't even realize that's how I was thinking, that's how I've been thinking this whole time, because with Tannehill, you've been seeing consistent improvement. Wilson, you've seen consistent improvements, short of these last couple of weeks. He looked excellent coming into the season. Hoyer, you've seen consistent improvement. Where RG3, you've seen consistent de-evolution. Dalton, you've seen no consistency at all. So
consistently inconsistent, if anything.
Exactly. I don't know if he's progressing or not, because every week that it looks like he's progressing, he comes over the next week and looks like he should have been dropped off in the MAC.
Oh, man.
But I think we just spent about 20 minutes on that conversation. I think that was a good one, because I didn't realize that where Tannehill is in my rankings. I think he deserves to probably get bumped a couple spots, and I'm gonna have to take a look at that after this.
Yeah, no, I think if you're watching, you should probably reevaluate Tannehill and figure out where he really is as he's moving up those boards.
Yeah, and I've liked him this whole time, but I hadn't really taken his production and considered it, proof that he was doing what I thought he could do. And I think, the fact that he's continued to progress, I think is gonna bode well for him in the future. And I think that covers our subreddit post discussion. So now it's time for my favorite part of the week, Drew's rant of the week. Where I get to get on my right. This one is we've seen a couple of posts about it in the subreddit. Scott's seen it in a couple of his leagues, and that's people that they get offended over these bad offers, over these bad trade offers, and I get it in some positions. Like I got an offer this week of Doug Martin, Wes Welker, and Anquan Bolden for some player I can't think of, and 2 first-round picks that are both looking to be in the top 4. This and a second-round pick. This is a horrible, terrible, terrible offer. But why get mad? I understand why he sent out that trade. He's trying to unload these players. Granted, he's asking for entirely too much, but I understand the point in it. But if you respond negatively to these owners and you sit here and call them out and like, why are you sending me these shit offers? Or you think I'm stupid? All you're gonna do is start a fight with one of your league mates. If you're in a 12-man league, you only have 11 trade partners already because you can't trade with yourself. If you get a fight with him and you sever that tie, you cut off those ropes. Now you're down to 10 trade partners. You've essentially eliminated 10% of the teams in the league to trade with. And that's only doing it one time. If you have that argument twice, now you're down to 9 owners you can trade with.
And that doesn't include the players that just hear this and decide they don't want to deal with you either after hearing your rant about this other guy.
Exactly. And it doesn't include your league mates that are potatoes and they don't respond to trade offers. The fact that this guy is sending out trade offers in the first place means that he's trying to get something done. Even if 9 out of 10 times he's trying to rip you off, that 1 out of 10 times you guys can work something out. It could have everything to do with differences in player evaluations. And Dynasty, the evaluations of players I've seen are just all over the board. And one person isn't necessarily right or wrong. I know we talked about it. We talked about it previously in another show that, when we talked about trade vetoes, that some guy was offered Justin Hunter for Cordero Patterson straight up, and the trade was accepted. Well, some people could be extremely high on Cordero Patterson, or they could be extremely low on Cordero Patterson. I mean, I've seen Cordero Patterson be ranked going into this offseason as a wide receiver 1 in terms of dynasty wide receiver rankings, and I've seen other people rank him as a bottom wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 4. Don't just assume that your evaluation is right and theirs is wrong, and the fact that their evaluation isn't yours means that they're, considering you're stupid. All it takes is, hey, I'm not looking to sell X player this cheap. I think we're way far apart on value, but thanks for sending the offer. That's all it takes is a 5-second response. You're done with it, and that's it. That you've made it seem like, hey, he's willing to at least consider my offer, so he's gonna, it fosters a trade relationship. Eventually, y'all will kind of get on the same page of what your player value is. But if you just send, a pissy response back and, you whine like a little girl, well, then they're going to look at you like, hey, this guy's just a crybaby, and he way overvalues his own players because his evaluation is different than yours. And, 9 out of 10 times, the guy sending you a crooked offer is not trying to rip you off. He just values players differently than you are. And that's a stat I just completely made up, but I legitimately believe it. Most of the time when I get rejections back in my inbox, most of the time it's like, hey, I don't think this player is worth that. I value him. I don't think this player is worth the first round pick. I'd maybe pay a late second for him. And that just shows that, hey, I thought the player was worth the first. He thinks he's worth the late second. Neither of us are necessarily wrong, but neither of us are necessarily right. I think we can go ahead and end the rant there. I know you've got to get going here in a minute.
Yeah, I do got to get going.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up for the week. Scott, thanks for joining me this week. It was nice to not have to sit here and talk by myself. This is a fun chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I enjoyed myself.
All right. For those of you who don't know, we have now a podcast site open on Stitcher and on Blog Talk Radio. If you search the Dynasty Playbook, we'll be the first option there. You can listen to us on your mobile phone. You can listen to us on the drive to work, while you're sitting at work, walking the dog, what have you. That way you don't have to sit on YouTube and listen to us that way. Granted, you don't get to see my beautiful face, but you still get to hear what we're talking about. I think that's all we have for today. This is the Dynasty Playbook. I'm Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine. You can find me on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. And With us today was Scott. You can find him on Reddit at Stewie35, and once again, he's antisocial and doesn't get a Twitter account. Thanks for stopping by tonight, y'all, and thanks for your time.